Hey everybody, it's Alana from Balani, and I am back this week to talk to you guys a little bit about language development. One of the good things about spending so much time together at home for your little ones is that they are probably hearing a lot of language, meaning that, your family is probably all together at home. There might be other adults in the home, a partner who maybe usually is not there. We don't have the ability a lot of times to be socializing in person with our own friends. And so a lot of times that leaves us talking to our babies a lot more, which is totally fine. Maybe a little bit crazy making for us because they don't really answer back as well, but totally wonderful for their language development. So today I just want to talk a little bit about what to be looking for at various stages and just encouraging some of the things that you're probably already doing and tying those together with how that helps to promote language development. So one thing that I usually do talk about a little bit in groups is the idea of screen time and language development and how those two things affect one another. And the thing is, as I am here talking to you via a video screen, there really is no substitute for our babies and toddlers for face-to-face verbal interaction. There is so much that they gain, as I'm talking with my hands, from looking at those whole body cues, from being able to read our facial expressions, from maintaining that eye contact, from hearing how the cadence of our voice switches, when we're asking a question versus when we're being silly versus when we're trying to set a limit and be stern. And those things just don't translate quite as well across a screen. That being said, the thing about screen time that inhibits language ability or language development is when there is too much of it. And that is inhibiting because that means that there is less of that face-to-face interaction. And I mention that because we are in this really difficult situation right now where, we don't have a lot of the tools available to us for, putting some routine into our day, putting some variety into our day, giving our children novel stimulation. A lot of us have ideas about screen time limits for our babies and young toddlers that might really just kind of be out the window right now. And so I just want to say that, not that you need my permission, but, from a developmental perspective, that's really not an issue. When we are spending so much one-on-one face time with our babies and young toddlers right now, if they are going to be entertained by watching some silly little colored shape YouTube videos, for your younger children with like some high contrast shapes, maybe some music in the background, or, those, what are the ones on Netflix? Mother Goose with like the little children who sing and there's some like fun backgrounds and stuff. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The American Academy of Pediatrics just says they recommend leaving it to, less than 2 hours a day. I do recommend not doing a lot of screen time close to the time you want your baby to sleep because there is some stimulating effect to that. But other than that, if it provides some kind of chill out entertainment for your young toddler or your baby, that is not going to inhibit language development because it is not going to be completely taking the place of that face-to-face interaction. That's really what I want to talk about today. What could that face-to-face interaction look like to try to encourage language development? The first thing to know is that for older infants and young toddlers, you are developing a huge base of receptive language skills, the language that they understand. And the first way that they start to understand that receptive language is when you are providing them with some consistent words and phrases that anchor them to parts of their day, to things like feeding, bottles, nursing, to things like, that might be a fun part of their day, like listening to music. This is also really the premise behind doing any type of baby signing with your older infant or with your young toddler, is that it helps to provide that little bit of another way for their memory to latch on to okay, so every time mom says that word that sounds like milk and she does this, that means that I get to eat afterwards. And so it provides a couple of those different ways for that to sink into their memory, and for them to be able to anchor that word in kind of their language repertoire that they're building. They may not be able to say it for a long, long time. They might be able to approximate that first consonant sound. You might see a really happy reaction that shows kind of that recognition. But the important part in that older infant stage and in that young toddler stage is about building up that bank of receptive language skills. And for quite a long time up into childhood, you're going to see evidence of the idea that, like, if you can picture like an iceberg, like their expressive language abilities, the words that they can say and that they might choose to use in everyday life, is kind of the top part of that iceberg that's like peeking out above the waterline. But then their receptive language skills is that huge amount of stuff that, like, even though they don't say those words or they might not initiate that type of communication, when they hear those words, they know exactly what you're talking about. And the first evidence that you see of this is, again, things that have a high level of repetition and meaning in your home. So looking for that evidence that, like, when you say your pet's name, maybe your baby starts to look down or look around, or looking for that evidence that when you say, "Oh, daddy's home," that your baby starts to look toward the door. The other one that starts to emerge in older infancy is definitely that connection with name. So making sure that you're using your baby's name often, so they start to hear that and they start to develop that association of, like, oh, hey, wait, that's me. Somebody's talking about me. And then those different key parts in your routine. It is really helpful to be able to prepare your child for transitions by using consistent words and phrases like, "We're going to go for a diaper change. It's time to change your diaper. Let's go to your room," and kind of coming up with some consistent things that you say so that your baby knows, like, oh, I know what's going to happen next. She's going to come pick me up. We're going to go into my room. I'm going to scroll all around like a crazy octopus and fight as hard as I can. But they have some preparation for that. And so that can really be helpful in easing some of those transitions and helping them know what to expect next and in building up that receptive language. So really, bottom line there, talk, 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 talk. Narrate what you're doing to your baby. Name objects around you. Talk about different qualities of an object, different sensory components. Talk, 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 talk. The other thing that can be really helpful with language acquisition is songs. So there's a reason why things like Old MacDonald is so popular. There's a reason why songs like The Wheels on the Bus are so popular. And that is because, like in the case of Old MacDonald, your child is able to make a lot of those really simple one-syllable sounds in response to you or in mimicking you. And so in anchoring that within the melody of a song, your child is able to anticipate, like, oh, I know what this is about. That's the one where I say, and then my mom gets all excited because I sound like a cow. And so being able to recognize the role that those types of songs play, and especially like with Wheels on the Bus, like the songs where there's some motions that go to them, again, anchoring in those words in your child's memory, those play a really important role in language development. So, like, that's just your cue, like, keep that up, do the finger play songs, Itsy Bitsy Spider, think about incorporating those into your day if you're not already, again, with a lot of that face-to-face time, because as they watch you and they watch your mouth form those words and they're seeing the different expression on their face, all of those things are helping anchor that language into their heads. The other thing that I'm sure you're already doing, but this is just your reminder to maybe vary it up by balancing out some of the old familiar books with maybe some different ones from your bookshelf, or maybe if you're able to, ordering a couple of new ones. But books are a fantastic way to be able to build up that receptive language and also start to see some indications of that expressive language. And so kind of talking about like more like the Grasshopper set, the 12 to 18-month-old kids. I love books that are anchored in songs. So this is a classic, Baby Beluga. You can see it as a very well-loved one in my home. But you can read it, but you can also go back and you can kind of sing the pages as you go, which again helps to kind of anchor that into your child's receptive language. So, think about, again, balancing out maybe some old favorites that have like a nice rhythm to them or kind of are based in song, with some different ones that might also encourage some expressive language. And by expressive language, I also mean initiation of communication, whether it's actually formed words or not, or whether it's evidence of using their receptive language skills by being able to do an action. So if you've taken a group with me before, you've probably heard me talk about that idea that a lot of children's books have repeated elements. So like the That's Not My series, again, a very well-loved one in my home. Not only do they have these fun sensory elements, but they also have this element of finding the mouse on every page. And so that becomes something that if you point it out, like, oh, there's the mouse, every single time you read it, when you go back again and you start saying, oh, there's the mouse, where's the mouse? And then you can see your, 12-month and up child start to be able to point or gesture to where the mouse is. You also are getting that evidence of like, okay, it's sinking in there, and they're able to communicate back to me what they understand. And that is such an important foundation of language. And then the other idea about reading is also just being able to put in some variety. And so books like this are fantastic because they also help to anchor things that are somewhat abstract in something that's a little bit more concrete. So when you're talking about purple, there's the word purple, and then there is the example of something that is purple, but it puts it in the context of a story instead of one of those books that's just like purple, yellow, green. And so those can be really fun to look at and to be able to go through as well. And so think about, again, that idea that repetition is really helpful with receptive language building and reading, but then being able to, kind of stick in some books that maybe have some different sensory elements, or maybe encourage being able to point things out and demonstrate those receptive language skills. That's fantastic. Two other quick things about language development. One, when you are going about your daily routine, look for opportunities to help your child indicate that they want to move forward, that they want to do what's coming next, that they want you to do more of something, that they want you to continue. You're playing, peekaboo with your baby. Pause for a second. Wait for them to kind of gesture or grab the cloth or kind of like, give you that like little sign of encouragement. For your older toddler, encourage them to say something like, do you want me to do more? And you could use the sign if you want to, or you could have them try to mimic that like sound. When you know that they want something, name that object, encourage them, again, for like the 12-month and upset, encourage them to try to mimic that first consonant sound. You want mama to get the ball? Ball? Can you say ball? B. And see if they can kind of give some indication of that. The other level of that for the 6 to 12 month set is them just being able to indicate. We talked about pointing last week with the fine motor skills. Can they indicate what it is they want for you? Make them work for it a little bit at this age. That's okay in kind of that 6 month and up set. Again, if we're just anticipating their needs all the time, they don't have that opportunity to try out their expressive language skills and to get that really, really important positive reinforcement back from us of, yes, that's right, you said it, or that's exactly what you wanted. Mommy sees what you want. I see you pointing. And that is the thing that they are going to build on to feel more confident to keep doing those expressive language skills. Just another quick note about the other part of language development, especially that expressive language development, which is just being able to make sure that your child has good musculature in their mouth to be able to form the letter sounds that they want to. And so just thinking about what types of different activities help them with that. So, some of my OT friends a lot of times will talk about encouraging children to be able to drink through a straw, because being able to coordinate their muscles to be able to do that is really helpful in coordination. Being able to eat a lot of crunchy foods or foods that have some resistance to them. Again, we're thinking about the 12 and up kind of category there, but thinking about the way that helps work their jaws, giving them toys to chew on, especially during, those times when their kind of oral needs seem to really ramp up. Instead of worrying so much about taking things out of their mouth, feed that need with things that are appropriate to be able to give them some of that resistance and build up some of those muscles. Thinking about doing things like blowing bubbles, like blowing a pinwheel, like mimicking different things that allow them to have some control over their mouth muscles. And, again, I always will put in my plug that if you're concerned at all, although I know we're in kind of an odd time for this right now, go ahead and contact your pediatrician or go ahead and self-refer to early intervention. If with language development, you're just kind of seeing a disconnect there between receptive language skills that maybe seem to be gigantic, but like just not a lot of expressive language skills, it never hurts to go ahead and do that referral. And be able to get some information back about what might help your child, if anything, or if there's any type of like hearing concern, if the foundation of the issue is something that's a little bit more muscle based. Those are really important things to be able to investigate early so that you can start to intervene in a way that's going to be effective. So again, here's just kind of your sort of pep talk to keep doing what you're doing. Those things are really important. That FaceTime with your baby, mimicking back to them the cadence of their and volume of their voice, taking turns, having those little conversations back and forth when they're making noises to you and you're mimicking back. Reading, singing, all of those things are so important. So keep up the good work. I hope you guys are staying safe and doing well, and I hope that we can be all back together soon. Take care.